So look, I want to ask you a question. If you were going to rob a museum, hypothetically, of course, how would you try to plan your escape? Would it be by car or like a motorcycle? Or maybe try to blend into a crowd to get away or something like that? Because all of that would be like very normal answers. But on March 16th, 2021, two people broke into one of Houston's finest art museums. And when the alarms went off and the cops showed up, they escaped in a motorboat down Buffalo Bayou. They evaded a police helicopter and a dive team, and ultimately they disappeared into the storm drain system beneath one of America's wealthiest neighborhoods. And here's the thing that makes it extra weird: they didn't steal anything. Not a painting, not a sculpture, not even like a decorative spoon. They spent 7 minutes inside examining Christmas decorations. They took an empty wrapped present, looked at it, and then put it back. I mean, that's crazy, right? So for about a month, the Houston police were like, okay, that was the most cinematically executed heist for what reason? I mean, nothing. This had everything: a pre-positioned getaway boat, knowledge of underground storm drains, cut locks, basement infiltrations. This was an Ocean's 11 level of planning, right? So for $0 in stolen art. But then in April 2021, they arrest this guy named Lewis Robertson, and his defense attorney said something super wild. There was no plan to do anything legal. This wasn't like a mission, end quote. I mean, that's not really how burglaries work, right? I mean, when a reporter contacted Robertson 3 years later and asked him what the hell actually happened that night, you know what he said? He said, "That's a wild story, plenty of mystery, and I think it should stay that way." I mean, before you're thinking to yourself, just like, wow, this is just a dumb criminal who got caught, I want you to really consider something. What if the fact that they didn't steal anything was the whole point? What if it wasn't a heist at all? What if it was a drunken mistake or maybe even performance art? Today, we're going to be diving into the story of the Bayou Bend Bandits and Houston's most confusing art crime.
Oh yeah, I know this one. I know this one. I know this one.
All right, so before we actually get into the actual break-in, we need to talk about what Bayou Bend actually is, because this isn't just some random art museum. This place has a story. Bayou Bend is the former estate of Miss Ima Hogg. Yes, that's her actual real name, Ima Hogg. Born in 1882, the daughter of Texas Governor James Hogg, and yes, her father really did name her that. There's a whole story about whether he did it on purpose or some kind of elaborate joke, but that's a Texas History Mysteries episode waiting to happen. What matters is that Ima Hogg became one of the most important philanthropists in Houston history. She was obsessed with American decorative arts and furniture, painting, ceramics, textiles, silver, you name it. And she built this incredible collection inside her family's 14-acre estate along Buffalo Bayou. The mansion itself, it's a pink stucco building, Southern colonial style. It's absolutely gorgeous. And it sits right on the bayou, which is going to be very important later. In 1957, Ima Hogg donated the entire estate, the mansion, the 14 acres of gardens, and her entire collection to the Museum of Fine Arts of Houston. Today, Bayou Bend has more than 2,500 objects on display across 28 rooms and in galleries. We're talking colonial American furniture worth millions, paintings by American masters, rare ceramics and glass, historic silver collections, and textiles and decorative objects. This isn't some small regional museum. This is one of the most important collections of American decorative arts in the country. And because of that, it has security. Alarms, guards, cameras, all the normal museum stuff. Which brings us back to March 16th, 2021. Now, if you're not from Houston or Texas, you need to understand something about Houston as a city. Houston is built on bayous. These are slow-moving rivers or creeks, depending on how generous you're feeling, that wind through the entire Houston metro area. Buffalo Bayou is the main one. It runs from the west of the city all the way to Houston Ship Channel, which connects to the Gulf of Mexico. It's about 18 miles of winding, murky water cutting right through downtown Houston. In recent years, they've turned part of it into this really nice park system in downtown. You've got hiking and biking trails, kayak launches, public art installations. It's actually pretty cool for it being in Houston. But here's what's wild. Because it's a natural waterway that's been here forever, Buffalo Bayou connects to Houston's storm drain systems. We're talking about a massive network of underground drainage tunnels that run beneath, all of Houston's neighborhoods, but definitely some of the most expensive neighborhoods, including River Oaks, which is basically Texas's version of Beverly Hills. River Oaks is where Houston's wealthiest people live. We're talking mansions worth 10 million, 20 million, 30 million. Tillman Fertitta, the billionaire who owns the Houston Rockets, has a house right on Buffalo Bayou. And Bayou Bend sits right in the middle of all of this. So if you wanted to access this museum without being seen on the streets, if you wanted to approach from below, per se, from the water, Buffalo Bayou is how you do it. There are public boat ramps, there are private access points, and if you know where you're going, you can navigate the entire bayou system without ever being seen from the streets. Which, this is exactly what someone did. March 16th, 2021, sometime before 6:45 p.m., someone drives a van to the Buffalo Bayou Partnership Boat Ramp on North York Street. This is a semi-public access point. You're supposed to have authorization to use it. The people, they don't actually have authorization, so they cut the lock on the gate. Inside the van, a small metal motorboat with an outboard motor. Not fancy, not expensive, just a basic fishing boat that you could, buy used for a few $100. They launch the boat into Buffalo Bayou and leave the van parked at the ramp, which, spoiler alert, is going to be how they eventually get caught. But we'll get to that. From the North York Street ramp to Bayou Bend is maybe about a mile and a half by water at a slow paddle because you don't want to attract attention with a loud motor. That's maybe 20-30 minutes. The sun sets in Houston in mid-March around 7:15 p.m. So if you launch around 6:15, you've got twilight. Not fully dark yet, but dim enough that you're not, super visible from the banks. Bayou Bend's 14 acres straddles both sides of Buffalo Bayou. The mansion itself is set back from the water, but you can absolutely access the property from the bayou side as well. And that's exactly what they did. 6:45 p.m., two people, a man and a woman, beach their boat somewhere along the bayou edge of the property. They make their way to the north terrace of the mansion itself, where there's a basement window covered by a metal grate. This is not easy. These grates are designed to keep people out. You need tools, pry bars, maybe bolt cutters, and time. And according to court records, they spent approximately 7-8 minutes trying to get the grate off. 7 minutes, that's not quick. That's not just, it popped open. That's determined physical labor. But ultimately, they do get it open. They squeeze through the basement window and enter Bayou Bend. At 6:52 p.m., the alarm triggers immediately. The moment they entered through the window, they tripped a sensor. The museum's alarm systems immediately started blaring. A security guard who's monitoring the live camera feeds see the two people inside the museum. A man, arm tattoos visible, a woman wearing a large hat and holding what looks like paper or cloth over her face to obscure it from the cameras. The guard announces himself. He's coming. The clock is ticking. So what do you do when you've just broken into a museum and the alarm is blaring and security is responding immediately? I mean, let's just be real. If you're a normal thief, you grab the most valuable thing you can carry and you run, right? And here's what they actually did. This is according to the actual court records filed in Harris County. They walked through various rooms. They opened closed wooden cabinets in the front foyer. They found an empty Christmas present, like the kind that, has decorative wrapping, box museums use for holiday, displays and stuff like that. And they picked it up. They examined it, and then they put it back. They rummaged through more cabinets. One of them was seen inspecting, you know, Christmas decorations, but they were just stored. They weren't even being used, just stored Christmas decorations. And that's it. No paintings removed from walls, no smashed display cases, no sculptures stuffed into bags. Total estimated time inside the museum, 7-8 minutes. The security guard approaches. The two intruders see him coming, and according to the court records, the male suspect, later identified as Lewis Robertson, yells at the security guard and cusses him out. And then they run out the front door on the south side of the mansion. The security guard chases him through the woods that surround the property. He's calling Houston Police Department as he runs. The two suspects reach their boat. They jump in, start the motor, and speed off down Buffalo Bayou, heading east. At 7 p.m., the Houston Police Department receives the call. Museum burglary in progress. Suspects fleeing by boat on Buffalo Bayou. Okay, so think about this. You're Houston Police Department. You get a call that a burglary suspects are escaping in a boat down Buffalo Bayou. How do you stop a boat when you're in cars? So at 7:15 p.m., officers position themselves on the Shepherd Drive Bridge, which crosses over Buffalo Bayou. Lieutenant Larry Croson with HPD, the spokesperson, later explained,
Earlier tonight, about 7:30, we had a burglary at the Museum of Fine Arts branch at River Oaks. Apparently, they broke into the building. When officers arrived, the suspects jumped out of the building, ran to Buffalo Bayou, and got into a motorboat. Started the motorboat up, started boating down Buffalo Bayou. Officers were able to get on the Shepherd Bridge and the Loop Bridge and kind of block them in. At that point, we lost touch of them or lost sight of them. We had the helicopter come fly over. We were unable to locate them with the helicopter. Believing that they had hidden the boat somewhere, we requested the dive team. The dive team started floating down Buffalo Bayou.
7:45 p.m., HPD launches a helicopter with a spotlight to search from above. 8 p.m., the dive team is called in. These are the guys who recover drowning victims, search for evidence in water, and do underwater rescues and stuff like that. And now they're searching a murky bayou at night for two burglary suspects using the helicopter spotlight. The dive team locates the suspects hiding with their boat inside a large drainage culvert. But here's where it gets even wilder, right?
The suspects jumped out of the boat and ran into a drainage culvert that runs up under River Oaks. One of our canine officers was in the area. The canine officer, along with a couple of Central Patrol officers, went into the tunnel to try to locate the suspects. Unfortunately, after they went a short way into the tunnel, we lost radio communications with them. After they'd been in there a while, we became a little concerned that we couldn't make contact with them. We requested the fire department to come out to help us locate the officers. About the time the fire department arrived, we located the officers. They are okay, and they got out of the tunnel. The suspects had fled further back into the tunnel, so we have not located the suspects. We'll follow up with their boat. Hopefully the boat's registered with Parks and Wildlife. We can try to determine the owner through investigating.
Completely vanished into the underground drainage system beneath some of the most expensive real estate in Texas. So what was the evidence that they recovered? One small metal motorboat with the outboard motor still attached. One van registered to Lewis Yates Robertson, parked at the North York Street boat ramp with a cut lock on the gate. Evidence that was lost, two people with tattoos, descriptive, kind of traits, and any explanation for what the hell just happened, right? So late evening, March 16th, 2021, museum officials conduct a thorough sweep of Bayou Bend. They go through all 28 rooms and galleries. They check 2,500 plus objects on display. They examine every cabinet, every case, every wall. March 17th, 2021, the Museum of Fine Arts of Houston releases an official statement. Here it is. Last night at approximately 6:45 p.m., two intruders, a man and a woman, entered Bayou Bend through a grate to a basement window on the north terrace of the House Museum. Our burglar alarm sounded, our security guard responded, and the intruders escaped through the front door on the south facade. Our security guard chased them through the woods. The intruders had a motorboat waiting on the bayou. The Houston police found the boat after they escaped through a culvert. No one was harmed, and no works of art were damaged. Nothing was removed from the premises. So obviously this story goes viral, right? Museum burglars escape by boat by the Houston Chronicle. Suspects escape on boat in Buffalo Bayou after attempted museum heist, CW39. The museum heist sounds like a scene straight out of a movie, every source imaginable. The Houston Police Department processes the recovered boat. They're looking for fingerprints, DNA, registration numbers, serial numbers on the motor, and any identifying marks. The van, though, is the key. It's registered to Louis Yates Robertson, 33 of Houston, Texas. HPD runs his name. He's got a record. November 2005, he was arrested for evading and detention with a vehicle, multiple traffic violations, known to authorities, so they've got a name. They've got a suspect. The museum surveillance footage shows the male suspect, visible tattoos on both arms, mid-30s build. The female suspect, large hat covering face, paper cloth, something to obscure it from the cameras. She did have visible arm tattoos as well, though. The woman knew exactly where the cameras were and how to avoid being identified. HPD releases descriptions. Both suspects, thin build, tattoos on both arms. That's it. That's all they've got. The woman has remained completely unidentified. April 13th, 2021. Nearly a month after the break-in, Louis Robertson is arrested and charged with burglary of a building, a state jail felony. His bail, $1,000. So $1,000 for a museum burglary with a helicopter chase and store and drain, escape. And yeah, so bond conditions, no contact with Bayou Bend's address, no contact with the Museum of Fine Arts, Houston. These are standard conditions. Robertson posts bond immediately and is released. April 15th, 2021, Robertson scheduled to appear in court. He doesn't show up. A warrant is issued for his failure to appear, but Robertson eventually surfaces for later proceedings. The woman, still at large, never arrested, never identified. As of 2025, she's still missing. Robertson hires attorney Mark Metzger III, who gives one of the most bizarre defenses I've ever heard for a burglary case. April 16th, 2021, Metzger speaks to the Houston Chronicle. Quote, "There's no plan to do anything illegal. This wasn't like a mission," end quote. Okay, so if there was no plan to do anything illegal, why did they cut a lock on a boat ramp, spend 7 minutes prying open a basement grate, and enter a museum after hours through a window? So Metzger continued, quote, "Everybody likes the whole Hollywood aspect of this case. It very well was not," end quote. He also claims there was no damage to the property. There's no evidence of a break-in, as mentioned in court documents. There may have been pre-existing damage to the museum building. Whoever entered didn't damage the property. Robertson was not charged with evading arrest. Technically true, he was only charged with burglary of a building, not evading. But that's the prosecutor's choice, not evidence of his innocence or anything like that. The defense raises more questions than it answers. So if there was no plan to do anything illegal, then why the elaborate boat escape? Why the storm drains? Why did Robertson yell and cuss at the security guard? In April 2021, court records provided the clearest picture yet of what actually happened inside the museum. According to surveillance footage reviewed by the investigators, the pair spent approximately 7 minutes trying to open the basement grate before succeeding. Once inside, they visited various rooms throughout the museum. They opened a closed wooden cabinet in the front foyer. The male suspect, Robertson, was seen inspecting stored Christmas decorations. They found an empty wrapped Christmas present used for holiday display purposes. They picked it up, examined it, and put it back. No items were removed, no display case were broken, no artwork was damaged. So let me get this straight. They spent 7 minutes breaking in, risked a felony charge, planned this elaborate boat escape, to look at what fake Christmas presents. It doesn't make sense to me, right? The burglary case proceeds slowly through the Harris County court system, but before it can fully resolve, Robertson gets arrested again, May 7th, 2021, just a few weeks after posting bond for the Bayou Bend burglary. Robertson is pulled over in Beaumont, Texas, which is about 90 miles east of Houston, for not wearing a seatbelt. During the traffic stop, officers discover that Robertson has outstanding warrants from Beaumont and Harris County. There's a firearm in the vehicle. Robertson is previously a convicted felon, so he's prohibited from owning or possessing firearms. Robertson is arrested on federal weapons charges, felon in possession of a firearm. This is a serious charge. Federal mandatory minimum sentences, for sure. October 31st, 2023, Lewis is sentenced to federal prison for the firearms violation. As of 2024, he's been released. The burglary charge from Bayou Bend appears to have been resolved as part of a plea deal, though exact details are definitely not public. So let's talk about the woman. What do we know? Arm tattoos on both arms, wore a large hat, held it over her face to obscure her from the camera, and she knew exactly where the cameras were positioned. She was there every step of the way through the escape into the storm drain. She was never caught, never identified. And what we don't know is her name, her relationship to Robertson, where she went after escaping the storm drains, why no one has come forward to identify her, whether she's still in Houston or if she ever, was questioned even. Houston Crime Stoppers offers a reward for information about her still to this day. As of 2025, 4 years later, no one has claimed the reward or provided her identity. Online sleuths have speculated, is she, his girlfriend, wife, accomplice for hire? Did she have inside knowledge of the museum? Was she the mastermind and Robertson was just the driver? Did they split up after escaping and she left Houston entirely? We don't know, and apparently Houston PD doesn't either, or if they do, they're not saying, or they don't really want us to know, and, it is what it is. So what actually happened that night? So I've got 3 theories. So theory 1, the bungled heist, right? This was supposed to be a real robbery. They planned to steal something specific and valuable, but when the alarm went off immediately and security responded, much faster than expected, they panicked and they ran. The planning supports this: pre-positioned boat, cut locks at the boat ramp, knowledge of the basement window access, 7 minutes trying to open the grate. That's serious preparation. And Bayou Bend has 2,500 valuable objects, small enough to carry, in a boat. Waterside location, perfect for a boat escape. But here's what doesn't fit. They stayed for 7-8 minutes after the alarm went off. That's a long time if you're panicked. If you're panicked, you grab something and run immediately. They had time to examine Christmas decorations and they put things back. They took the wrapped present, examined it, and put it back. That's not panic. That's just something else entirely. Plus, they brought no bags or tools. There's no evidence of bolt cutters for display cases, or surveillance didn't show them equipped to transport art. So, I don't know. Theory 2, the inside tip gone wrong. Someone told them something valuable was hidden in those specific cabinets, maybe cash, jewelry, something not cataloged. They went looking for it, found nothing but Christmas decorations, and realized they'd been set up or misinformed. This would explain their specific target behavior. They went straight to specific cabinets. They opened a closed wooden cabinet in the front foyer. They examined Christmas decorations like they were looking for something hidden. Examining an empty wrapped present makes sense if you expected it to contain something. But who would set them up? Museum staff there are heavily vetted. The museum investigated all staff after this. No one was fired or charged with anything. If there was an insider, they're incredibly well hidden. And if you think that there's cash in a cabinet, you don't carefully examine fake presents. You rip open everything looking for what you came for. So, theory 3, performance art maybe. This was never about theft. It was a piece of guerrilla performance art. The elaborate escape was the art itself. The mystery was intentional. Robertson's refusal to explain is what part of the work actually is. Think about the aesthetic choices here. Approaching via boat on Buffalo Bayou, it's theatrical. Storm drain escape is cinematically perfect. The Christmas present details is absurdist. Nothing stolen equals no victims equals victimless crime as art. I do want to point out that there's been some theories in this realm that we might be dealing with something that most Houstonians and some Texans would know well, which is the toe flop theory, and that's where I'm going with this. Think about how graffiti artists actually reach their locations, how they're used to actually maneuvering and getting their pieces up. I mean, it sounds pretty similar. And Houston does have a lot, and toe flop is quite popular. So I don't know. It's a theory I saw online that all kind of played into this fact that this might be some kind of bigger kind of statement, some punk rock screw you type of thing going on in graffiti community in Houston. To carry on, Houston does have a vibrant contemporary art community. The Menil Collection, Rothko Chapel, these all push conceptual boundaries. Performance art and boundary testing are part of the culture. Plus, there's historical precedents. There's been plenty of people who've been arrested for their art performances. Even Banksy commits vandalism regularly. It's considered art. Ai Weiwei was imprisoned for his political art. The Yes Men commit fraud as performance, and it's celebrated. The line between art and crime is famously blurry. But here's the problem with this theory, right? So Robertson's criminal history, 2005, evading arrest with vehicle, 2021, felon in possession of a firearm, 23, sentenced to federal prison. This doesn't exactly scream conceptual artist. No evidence. Robertson's has any ties to the Houston art scene, no gallery representation, no history of artistic practice, no manifestos or statements. Couldn't find anything about graffiti with him. And his defense attorney said this wasn't like a mission. So if it was performance art, why not claim that as the defense, not guilty by reason of artistic expression? If that was actually a thing. So which theory is it? I genuinely don't know, but in October 2025, Houston Chronicle reporter Yair Romero decided to ask Robertson directly. He tracked him down and called him. Robertson did answer, and Romero said, Can I ask you to tell me what happened that night on Buffalo Bayou? Why did you break into Bayou Bend?" Robertson said, and I quote, "That's a wild story. There's plenty of mystery, and I think it should stay that way." He chuckled. He seemed to relish in the intrigue. And then he declined to further elaborate. So let's think about this for a second. Robertson has been arrested, convicted, and served time on federal weapons charges. The statute of limitations on the burglary has run out for any additional charges. He's not facing any new legal jeopardy from talking. So why won't he explain it? Maybe he's protecting someone. Maybe the mystery woman, right? Maybe she was somebody that's more important than what we think here. Someone connected. Maybe he genuinely doesn't have a good explanation, and admitting it was pointless. It feels worse than maintaining the mystery. Maybe the mystery is the point. He enjoys being known for this weird, inexplicable crime. The legend is better than the truth, like some normal guy that has a cool story to tell at the bar, right? Or maybe it actually was performance art of some kind, and explaining it would ruin it. I keep coming back to the phrase that I think it should stay that way. That's not no comment. That's not talk to my lawyer. That's not even I don't want to talk about it. That's someone actively choosing to preserve a mystery, which brings me to the bigger question. When does crime become art, right? So Banksy commits vandalism, spray painting on buildings without permission. That is a crime. But when Banksy does it, we call it art. Museums try to preserve his vandalism. Property owners increase their home values when Banksy tags their buildings, right? And it drives to the question of, so where's the line? Is it intent? If Robertson intended it as art, does it make it art? Is it the art world's recognition? If galleries and critics validate it, does it become legitimate? Is it the absence of victims Bayou Bend lost nothing. No one was hurt. Does that change the nature of the act? So again, here's what I keep thinking about, right? They took an empty wrapped Christmas present, they examined it, and they put it back. It's so weird. Again, art is fundamentally about value, right? We assign value to objects. A Rothko sells for $50 million, a Rembrandt for $100 million. American decorative arts, like what's in Bayou Bend, can be worth hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars. But an empty wrapped present has zero monetary value, unless it's art. Then the emptiness might be the point. In 1958, an artist named Yves Klein held an exhibition called The Void, a completely empty gallery painted white. Nothing on the walls, nothing in the space, just emptiness. It was one of the most important exhibitions of the 20th century. John Cage composed 433, a 4-minute and 33 seconds piece of silence. The piece is the absence of music. It's considered a masterpiece. So what if the Bayou Bend heist is the same type of thing? What if the theft of nothing is the statement? What if examining an empty present and putting it back is a conceptual art piece about value, theft, and meaning? Or if it's just two people who made a stupid decision and we're reading way too much into it, which is probably closer to the truth. But here's what I do know. By refusing to explain, Robertson has done something interesting, whether he meant to or not. He's made himself unforgettable. If he'd said, oh yeah, we were drunk and thought it'd be funny, this would be a stupid crime, and then we'd forget a stupid crime. But by maintaining the mystery, he's created a story that Houston is still talking about, years later, that a reporter is still investigating, that we're still trying to understand. I've personally been researching this story for a couple weeks now, and I genuinely don't know what to make of it. On one hand, you've got a guy with a criminal record, evading arrest in 2005, weapons charges in 2021, who broke into a museum with a boat and a getaway plan. That's pretty straightforward criminal behavior. And on the other hand, you've got all these details that don't make sense for normal burglary. Nothing stolen. Looking on videotape at Christmas decorations, empty presents picked up and put back. 7 minutes inside, even after alarm. An elaborate escape that actually worked. A complete refusal to explain years later. Whether Louis Robertson and his mystery accomplice intended to create art or not, they intended something that Houston is still talking about. They created a story that doesn't fit in any category. They created a mystery that resists, any explanation. And in a weird way, that might be more interesting than if they'd actually stolen something. Because, here's the thing about art museums. They exist to preserve and display objects that we've collectively and arbitrarily have decided that they have value. We assign these objects monetary value, $50,000, $500,000, $5 million. But what gives them that value? The fact that they're old, that they're rare, that they're beautiful, or is it just a story that we tell ourselves? So when someone actually breaks into a museum, examines a decorative Christmas present and leaves without taking anything, what they've stolen isn't an object. What they've stolen is our certainty about what matters. And maybe that's worth more than any painting. Somewhere out there, there's a woman who successfully broke into a Houston museum, escaped by boat, evaded a helicopter and a dive team, and disappeared into the storm drains, and has never been identified. She knows what happened that night. She knows why they did it. She knows what they were looking for in those Christmas decorations. And she's never told a soul. So maybe she moved to another state. Maybe she's listening to this right now, laughing at all of these theories or whatever. But, Louis Robertson was convicted. He served his time and he's free again. He could tell us if he wanted to. He could tell us everything. But he won't because, the mystery should stay that way in his mind. So yeah, that's the story of the Bayou Bend Bandits, Houston's most baffling, crazy art crime, a heist where nothing actually happened. An escape so cinematic it sounds like fiction, and a mystery that refuses to be revealed. I mean, now I want to hear from you. What do you think actually happened? Was it, messed up heist? Was it graffiti, performance art kind of thing, a prank gone wrong, something we haven't even thought of? Drop a comment, let me know. I genuinely want to know how people land on this because I'm still not sure myself. And if you like this episode and you want to hear more art world mysteries, from the Gardner Heist Museum to Van Gogh's murder theory, Banksy, please subscribe. It really helps us out. We drop new episodes every single week, exploring the strange, mysterious, and definitely the weirdest stories from the art world. As always, thank you so much for being here and being a part of this community. It truly means the world. And hey, if you're the woman from Bayou Bend break-in and you're watching this, shoot me a message. I just want to hear what this was, Statute of limitations are up. All right, see you on the next one.
Oh yeah, I know this one. I know this one. I know this one.